Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janarangana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janarangana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupada, Sadhamram Sampradaya Victoria, Ashtapadishata Shri Srimad Gracie Sotriranta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, all glories to the Son of the Devotees, all glories to the Son of the Devotees, all glories to the Son of the Devotees, all glories to Shri Guru, Shri Guru,
all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Lord of Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Text, Chapter 1, Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu, and then Text 6. Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan
Uvaha Yajusham Patihi
Uvaya Dushampatihi
Tushtayam Tosham Appanno
Tushtayam Toshamapanno
Janayad Radhashatmajan
Janayad Radhashatmajan
Kankamayanam Bhagavan
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan
Uvaha Yajusham Patihi
Uvaha Yadushampatihi
Tushtayam Tosham Appanno
Tushtayam Toshamapanno
Janayad Radhashatmajan
Janayad Radhashatmajan
Kankamayanam Bhagavan
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan
Uvaha Yajusham Patihi
Uvaha Yadushampatihi
Tushtayam Tosham Appanno
Tushtayam Toshamapanno
Janayad Radhashatmajan
Janayad Radhashatmajan Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan Uvaha Upaha Yajusham Patihi.
Upaha Yajusam Patihi.
Tushtayam Tosamapanno.
Tushaya Tosam Apanno.
Janayat Dvadasatmajan.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan. Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan.
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan.
Upaha Yajusam Patihi.
Upaha Yajusapati.
Tushayam Tosanam Apanno.
Tushayam Tosamapanno.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan. Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan.
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan.
Upaha Yajusampati.
Upaha Yajusampati.
Tushayam Tosamapanno.
Tushayam Tosanam Apanno.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Tam Kayanam Bhagavan.
Kamayanam Bhagavan.
Upaha Yajusampati.
Upaha Yajusam Patihi.
Tushayam Tosamapanno.
Tushayam Tosam Apanno.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan.
Tam Kamayanam Bhagavan. Upaha Yajusampatihi.
Tushtayam Tosamapanno.
Tushtayam Tosamapanno.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Janaya Dvadasatmajan.
Word by word. Tam.
Tam.
Her.
Her.
Kamayanam.
Kamayanam.
Desiring.
Desiring.
Bhagavan.
Bhagavan.
The Lord.
Lord.
Uvaha.
Upaha.
Married.
Married.
Yajusham.
Yajusham.
Of all sacrifices.
Of all sacrifices.
Patihi.
Patihi.
Master.
Master.
Tushtayam.
Tushtayam.
And his wife,
In his wife.
who was very much pleased.
Who was very much pleased.
Tosham.
Tosham.
Great pleasure.
Great pleasure.
Apanaha.
Apanaha.
Having obtained.
Having obtained.
Arjunayat.
Ajnaya
Gave birth.
gave birth.
Dvadasha.
Dvadasha.
12.
12.
Atmajan.
Atmajan.
Sons.
Sons.
So is this thing working? Is it loud enough? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's,
I can hear
it's
it.
up to all of you.
Yeah, it's too loud. It's just fine.
It's too loud?
Too loud.
Alright, we'll
It's
just-
fine, perfect.
We'll get rid of it then. It's too loud. Okay, translation. The Lord of the ritualistic performance of yajna later married Dakshina, who was anxious to have the personality of Godhead as her husband. And in this wife, the Lord was also very much pleased to beget 12 children. Purport. An ideal husband and wife are generally called Lakshmi Narayan, to compare them to the Lord and the goddess of fortune. For it is significant that Lakshmi Narayan are forever happy as husband and wife. A wife should always remain satisfied with her husband, and a husband should always remain satisfied with his wife. In the Chanaka Shloka, the moral instructions of Chanaka Pandit, it is said that if a husband and wife are always satisfied with one another, then the goddess of fortune automatically comes. In other words, where there is no disagreement between husband and wife, all material opulence is present, and good children are born. Generally, according to Vedic civilization, the wife is trained to be satisfied in all conditions, and the husband, according to Vedic instruction, is required to please the wife with sufficient food, ornaments, and clothing. Then, if they are satisfied with their mutual dealings, good children are born. In this way, the entire world can become peaceful. And unfortunately, in this age of Kali, there are no ideal husbands and wives. Therefore, unwanted children are produced. There's no peace and prosperity in the present day world. Vancha kalpadrupascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll read the translation again. The Lord of the ritualistic performance of yajna later married Dakshina, who was anxious to have the personality of Godhead as her husband. And in this wife, the Lord was also very much pleased to beget 12 children. So, in order to, you could say, get the proper answers, or the answers that will help us in our life to be successful, whatever we're trying to do, we have to ask the right people. That seems pretty basic, but of course, pretty basic or common sense. But of course, this is actually not done many times, or this is not done quite regularly, or it's common that it's not done properly. In other words, people don't ask the right questions to the right people. There was one of the brahmacharis here. He's still here, but he asked Mukunda Datta Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple, a Mridanga player, singer, Sanskrit man. Mukunda Datta Prabhu was at Bhakti-Vatsal's house giving a house program, and the brahmachari went up to Mukunda Datta Prabhu and said, afterwards, he said, "So Prabhu, can you please tell me how to stay brahmachari, how to remain brahmachari? You know, can you please tell me?" And Mukunda Datta looked at him and he kind of smiled and he laughed and he said, "Hey, look at you, I'm wearing white. Why are you asking me? You know?" And he said, "You should ask somebody else." And then that brahmachari also smiled and laughed, and they laughed about it. And I don't know what happened after that. So, I mean, you may ask him, okay, how do you play mridanga, or how do you learn Sanskrit, something like that, something that he's expert in or good at. But to ask him, okay, how to stay brahmachari, he didn't do it. So he may have some ideas how to do it, but he didn't do it himself. So therefore he has a hard time saying it. But if you may go up to Dravida Prabhu, you could say that's a person, you know, he's been brahmachari, so he joined, right, 25 years old, now he's 70, right, almost 1 in December, he'll be 71. So you could ask him, okay, how did you stay brahmachari? And then that's a more suitable person to, okay, Abhinanda Prabhu wants to answer Dravida Prabhu.
You want the answer now?
Yeah. Or just something. Of course, it's a big topic, but maybe just a little.
Regulation, every day, morning program without fail, chanting rounds, and nectar shlokas. Get the high taste.
And a diet.
Diet?
Tell me your diet. Tell everybody your diet, please. 'Cause I already know, but tell everybody out there what you eat every day. From the morning to the evening, before you go to sleep.
He said it's too complicated.
No, just simple. I mean, it's very simple. If I remember correctly, he takes a smoothie in the morning.
Yeah.
At lunch, he takes half of a burrito. Right?
Salad, yeah.
And salad. And in the afternoon or evening, please?
A few nuts.
A few nuts.
Yeah.
Sounds like Tribikram Swami, another lifelong brahmachari. I lived with him for 5 months. Dried fruits and nuts. That's it. And he keeps them on the counter. He just walks by, takes a little bit whenever he's hungry. That's it. And a little maha at lunch. That's it. And a little juice. I'm telling you. I couldn't believe it. I lived with him for 5 months.
Yeah.
So brahmachari.
What I got to admit is sometimes in the day, in the middle of the day, I take 2/3 of the burrito rather than
2/3 of a burrito. Oh, excuse me. You know. That's amazing. Thank you. That's why. Plus all the other things you said. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, the point is, you ask somebody who is successful in a particular field or particular thing that you're trying to do. You ask them for advice how to do it. So yes, and similarly, you know, like sometimes devotees, you know, they go up to sannyasis who have been brahmacharis their whole life. You know, they took sannyasa, and asking for marriage advice. And you know, like we were just explaining, that the person who could actually explain these things the best is somebody who went through it, is actually successful. Now, of course, we could ask people who aren't successful in particular things, hey, why weren't you successful? You know, like for example, there wasn't a successful marriage. Okay, well, what didn't make it successful? or you're whatever, different positions in life, and you felt, okay, what did you do to make yourself not successful? So here Srila Prabhupada's mentioning this idea of husband and wife, and how they should always be satisfied with each other. Now, of course, I'm a brahmachari, and maybe somebody who has a successful marriage should be giving on this class. But anyway, but the basic point is that you could say that the basic principle that we could all live by, and that we will be successful if we live by it, is this idea of we want to be a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, right? And Prabhupada, devotees actually, there was a letter like that where devotees were complaining to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada got a lot of letters. Prabhupada wrote about 7,000 letters. It's like absolutely amazing. I mean, sometimes people in general, devotees, whoever, they have a hard time with their correspondence, but Prabhupada was so busy, and still he wrote 7,000 letters to all his disciples, and others too, people, bhaktas. Sometimes you hear these, you read these letters and it says, "My dear Bhakta David," or whatever it is. He's taking his time out. So in one letter, Prabhupada answered devotees' question, said that if all the devotees in the temple are seeing each other as a servant of the servant of the servant, they're seeing themselves like that, then he said there'll be no fighting in the temple. There'll be no quarreling in the temple. So the idea is that quarreling or fighting is that, well, hey, I have my idea and it's supreme and it's the best, and I can't compromise. We can't have any discussion. My way or the highway, right? Or whatever it is. We're not seeing each other as, okay, I'm a servant of these people. I'm a servant of whatever relationship we're in. So similarly with wife and husband, it's the same, that if she wants to be too big of a boss in a way that is uncompromising, and my way or the highway, and also he wants to be like that, then of course there's going to be quarrel, and then eventually quarrel leads to a lot of unhappiness, right? Frustration, unhappiness, not satisfied, dissatisfaction, and then there's divorce, right? And similarly, that principle holds true with brahmachari ashram or whatever, just whatever particular group we're in. Too much non-cooperation, not getting along together, and then there's separation, right? So therefore, there's this saying, right? A family that prays together stays together. Of course, you could say there's other things that help stay together, but that is extremely important as well, to pray together. So therefore, every morning we're chanting together, japa, right? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Of course, there's devotees on the altar and so on, but and that will actually help us stay together. So, but interesting enough is that there's so much stress given on the family structure, having proper family units within human society. And Prabhupada even goes as far as to say is that in this way the entire world can become peaceful, simply by the family structure being properly, or the family life being properly done. We can have peace in the world. But then Prabhupada says, but unfortunately in this age of Kali there are no ideal husbands and wives, therefore unwanted children are produced, and there's no peace and prosperity in the present day world. So maybe I have a question for all of you, that when Prabhupada says unwanted children, maybe Dravida Prabhu, maybe it's
Yeah, I've heard some confusion on that. And that is that people think because there's so many kids born out of wedlock, due to accidents, that the kids are unwanted by the parents.
Yeah.
But that's not what that means. That may be or may not be true. But what unwanted means that there was disturbance in society. And really that word Varna Sankara means a mixing of castes, because that was seen as a root of confusion in society, where caste might belong in laws. That's what the Varna Sankara means. But it's come to mean more than that, just in general overpopulation of people who are uncontrolled outside the Vedic paradigm and causing a lot of disturbance in society. That's what it means.
So just kind of untrained, uncultured.
Just look around you. We got it.
One devotee said, lazy, what is it? Lazy, insignificant, and uninformed. That's what he was saying. People are lazy, insignificant, and uninformed. So, yeah, there's a big list of the qualities of Kali Yuga, what are the qualities? And this is all due to, one of the major factors in this is not being properly trained and educated and having a proper family life. And of course, some people, they get lucky and they, come in contact with some religious institution or Krishna conscious. They come in contact and they get educated, they get trained, and they learn culture like that. So this is. So the idea is, of course, we want to. It's quite a task what Srila Prabhupada has ordered his followers to do. What has he inspired his followers to do? It's quite a task to transform the whole human society. So that means a lot. It means everything's transformed. How people are educated in schools and the whole, farm communities and the whole thing transforming the whole society. So, of course, this is going to take some time. We don't exactly know how much time. I don't think anybody knows exactly how much time, but it's going to take some time. And everybody, all of us, we have our role to play. And that's very important because to understand what is our role. We try to understand what is our role because sometimes we may be too concerned about things that really aren't in our realm of influence. Like, there was one brahmachari here some years ago, and he had all these wonderful ideas of how to transform ISKCON and, make it better and all these different types of things. And he went as far to say, okay, hey, well, I'm going to come up with this whole plan and I'll take it to the GBC. I'll take it to the GBC meeting. He was uninitiated and all that. And yeah, this devotee, he may have had some good ideas, but as far as I could see, a lot of his ideas were imbalanced and not mature ideas. So yeah, but he was very adamant, okay, yeah, we transform, but he didn't really have the maturity. So we have to know what is our realm of influence, and sometimes the realm of influence isn't that much, actually. Maybe it's a small group of people. Maybe it's one person, right? Or maybe it's a few times, whatever. Sometimes it's not that much. So, but that's in some ways that, and actually in all ways it's actually good. Whatever Krishna has given us, we have to work from there. And if we try to do beyond that, we're being unreasonable and we're not, acting in a mature way. And if we become qualified, over time, our influence may become more and more and more and more and more, and it actually, we may be able to influence thousands of people. Just like His Holiness Jayapataka Swami, he was boy who born in Wisconsin, America, and went to join Srila Prabhupada's mission, and went to Canada, temple president, took sannyasa in India and all that. But from him, you could say that in the beginning his influence was not very big, in terms of people. But over time, it is big, He's whatever GBC member, so many years, guru, sannyasi, all this, inspiring many people throughout the world. So we have to be practical in our thought process, who we can influence. And really, you could say the real revolution starts by our hearing and chanting sincerely about Krishna, or else we get nowhere. Personally, we get nowhere, and nor can we influence anybody, practically speaking. So that's really what it takes, that surrendering to Krishna. And surrendering to Krishna in this particular age, it means many things, but one of the main ways in which we surrender to Krishna is we surrender to the holy name of Krishna, right? It says that Krishna and his name are non-different. So, Sarvadhamam Pratyajam Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, right? Surrender unto me, Krishna is saying. Okay, well, Krishna is his name. Okay, surrender to the holy name of Krishna. So that's the first business of any devotee trying to do anything good for themselves or the world or anyone, that they first and foremost surrender to the holy name of Krishna. Or else, in many ways, everything else that we do can be very superficial and can be very just shallow. Not much substance. Although, in the eyes of many, it may be wonderful, but really, we have to surrender to the holy name of Krishna. I remember Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he wrote all types of interesting things, poetry and books. And he was writing something to Prabhupada. And he was saying that, I have done this, I have done that, I have done so many things. And he's listing all the things he's done, which was quite a lot, quite great service. But in this particular thing, he was saying, but have I given up sex desire? That's what he was saying. Have I given up that? So he said, I've done this, but have I given up that sex desire? And he kept on making that point. Now, of course, okay, sex desire, whatever, but of course, we could say that about any anartha, that whatever, anger or lust, selfishness or greed or all these different types of things. Okay, we have done this, we have done so many things, or we're going to do so many things, hopefully. But really, we have to let go of those other anarthas. And in this particular age, that the way we do that is by chanting the holy names. And right there's that verse, Harinama, 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 Kevalam, Kalam, Nasteva, 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 Gatir, Nita. So that says there's no other alternative, there's no other alternative, there's no other alternative than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name for spiritualization this age. Say it 3 times. And so this is a very important verse to understand. Now, of course, it seems like super simple, this and that, but it's actually a very deep and important verse to understand that. Yeah, this is the process, chanting. My spiritual master, sometimes I spend time with him. It's my good fortune. And he chants a lot of japa. He does a lot of other things too, but but when I was hearing him chant, and then in between, and then all of a sudden he'd chant Harinama, 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 Kevalam, this verse, and then he would chant Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, and I was thinking, wow, he's really chanting this a lot, like it was in the period of 2 hours or something. I heard it so many times, and then I asked him about it. And he said that he chants Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya before each round. And the idea is that Chaitanya Charitamrita says, in order to get the mercy of Krishna, with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Panchatattva, we have to get the mercy of them, right? So, and he also chants his Harinama. Now, I never got to ask him why, but anyways, I'll do that eventually. But I did think that was interesting, that Harinama, maybe capable. And of course, I could only speculate or guess why he's doing that or whatever. But you could say, or I could think about the possible reasons, which I think are logical, that to get into his mind or get into our minds in general, that yeah, this is it. You know, this is the process. Chanting, and to remind ourselves, okay, this is it, chanting. So in order to spread Krishna consciousness successfully, in order to have successful marriage life, successful brahmacharya life, successful sannyas life, successful life in general, we have to come to this point that we understand this Harinama Ed Kevalam. This is the process, and to surrender to it. So I'll stop there. Does anyone have any questions? Or yes? I feel very embarrassed because I'm speaking in front of a bunch of devotees who are much senior to me and older to me, and there's none of the younger devotees.
Not to discount what you said,
Yeah.
but to fill in a little more. Because some people might walk away from this class that a sannyasi who's never been married, I'm not defending myself, I was married, I took 2 kids to college, you know, I mean, so, you know,
Yeah.
I worked, I mean, I know what it's like. So I'm not trying to fit, oh hey, I'm still in business for marital advice, you know, but there's householders who can give you bad advice.
Yes, that's true.
And there's some sannyasis that can give you good advice.
Yes.
And I think you hit the core of the thing. What is that ultimately going to solve everything and all, you know, whatever. But you've got Radhanath Maharaj, who I've seen give excellent advice, and he's never been married.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to balance that, you know, and Shivaram Maharaj, he was married. And yeah, he was married. He was married, and he took to Krishna consciousness, and his wife didn't want to come. And yet he's developed one of the most successful and powerful household communities in the ISKCON world. Just as a sidelight, he, after he'd been a devotee about 3 or 4 years, he was on Sankirtan in, what was the name of the city? I think Regina, something like that, Saskatchewan, whatever it is, you know. He was on Sankirtan in Canada, and one young lady was, you know, roughly his age, was coming out of, and he approached her for a book, explaining things. So afterwards she said, "You don't recognize me?" He said, "You know, tell you the truth, I don't, because I usually don't, you know, I'm a monk, and I, you know." She said, I was married to you." He said it threw him for a minute. He said after they finished talking, he really did. He went and sat down for a minute or two and chatted a little job, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to offer that there are, and there's some. So you really want to find someone who's Krishna conscious, deeply Krishna conscious. Although having been, you know, Prabhu was married, and in many ways he referenced that. So I'm not discounting the point you made, but I just don't want people thinking that, well, as soon as if they're a sannyasi, forget it, they can't, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Devaki Mataji, she was here, she was making a bunch of points. She had a big seminar here, like 4 hours each day, but one of the things she was saying that Niranjana Swami,
who never was married.
Yeah. In Ukraine, he has he's preaching there a lot, and he set up this whole mentor system and mentee, and, you know, it's a big topic, but And he said that a lot of the householders, or all of the householders practically, that's what she was saying, that they go to the mentors to get the advice. And she was saying that in the Ukraine, the divorce rate for devotees is like practically nothing. Like they never get divorced. And of course, whatever, there's astrological matchmaking, all this type of stuff. But interesting, she was saying that she was talking with some devotees, and anyways, I don't know where she exactly got this number from or this and that, but she said that some of the sannyasis, they said that 75% of their questions they get is this marital problems advice, like, oh, how do I solve this problem, how do I solve that problem, like that. And some of them spend their time like that, depending on who they are, whatever, spend time like that. And then she was telling her spiritual master, that Niranjana Swami, and he said, oh, not me, they don't come to me with that, because he set up his whole system with mentor. Which he was saying, he was, what she was saying, that he was happy about that. So. And, Radhanath Swami has that whole mentor system, Chowpatty. Of course, different places of the world, it may be, depending on how many devotees are, this, that, so many things, it's maybe more difficult or easy to set up. But yeah, whether one has gone through certain situations of life doesn't necessarily mean they can't give any advice. They can't give advice. Because Krishna, it says in the 4th canto of the srimadbhagavatam, that Krishna, or Prabhupada makes a point in a purport, that Krishna can give unlimited intelligence to the spiritual master to guide his disciples. So that's quite I always like that statement. Unlimited intelligence, that's a lot.
I don't know how many people notice this, but it reminds me of this very important junction that we need to follow the instructions of the great souls, whether it's the spiritual master or Krishna himself, and not their activities when those activities may not comport with their instructions. You know what I mean? In other words, Krishna danced with the gopis.
Yeah.
Well, we follow his instructions in the Bhagavad Gita, and we don't follow his example for that. But it was also an example that we follow. I was just reading his activities in Dwarka. Prabhupada says, yes, Krishna got up before dawn, and
meditated on himself.
And we have to meditate on Krishna and Radha. So here we find Jagya, the son of Ruchi, marrying his sister, Dakshina. They were born as twins, and then Swayambhuvamana took Yagya because he was his son. And then Yagya comes back and he marries Dakshina. It doesn't even mention, I was thinking Vishwanath Chakrabarti might mention something. But that's something we want to imitate.
Yeah. So you're saying Yagya married Dakshina.
Well, that's what it says.
Yeah.
And the purport of that is?
No, I'm just saying that it reminds me of this principle of how you have to differentiate the Lord's activities. Some of them are exemplary, as he says in the Gita. If I didn't do it,
For humans, yeah.
But some of them are obviously only he can do it, and there's no shade. Just like Krishna danced with the gopis, there's no sin there. This is no problem.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that before, the first time.
So does anyone have any other questions, comments? Kadashi ki jai.
I have a joke.
Okay.
Yeah, you need it.
Because you were saying about there'll be no quarrels. The Mahavishnu, Prabhupada tells about quarrels. As soon as you put two people together, especially in the age of Kali, there's going to be some kind of quarrel. So, and Prabhupada gives the example of Gandhi had a quarrel with his wife and told her she has to get out of the house. That's it. So she just went outside and sat on the porch, and after about an hour, I don't know how long, but after some time he calmed down, went out and apologized, and she came back in. There's no question of divorce. But Mahavishnu, I don't know if many of you didn't get the chance to meet him, but the elderly Mahavishnu Swami was, and he, been married, so he'd been through a lot actually. So he told me the story one time that the purport of the thing is, don't take something so seriously, you know. I mean, if you have an abusive husband or a wife who's unfaithful, well, those are serious things, you know. But so many other things just come up, and don't take it so seriously. So in that context, he told this story. He was in Kenya, and I think it was in Mombasa, but maybe it was in Nairobi, I don't know. But there was the African community was on one side, and the Indian community was on the other side. And there was a wall. And, you know, whatever, that's how it was set up. So there was this one African family, husband and wife, who used to fight and shout, and no punching and hitting, but, you know, fighting, quarrel, arguing. And they couldn't sleep at night. So even then, he was the unofficial head of the Gujarati society, you know, the Indian community. So they elected him, or, you know, in the discussions, that he was the one who went over and talked to this guy, this African couple. And he explained to them that, you know, we can't sleep. And, you know, we don't want to get involved in your business, but, you know. So he said, can you fight, but just don't shout? And the African guy said, yeah, oh yeah, he's very apologetic. He said, we can do that. Okay, we'll have our disagreement, but we'll keep it on the DL, you know, on the volume will be down low. So it went on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, everything was fine. And then Mahavishnu Swami said he met the man. The man had some kind of shop or something, and whatever, somehow they met. And the men were quite morose. So Mahavishnu Swami said, but why do you look so downcast? You know, you're not fighting, you're not shouting at each other. He said, if we argue and can't shout, it's no fun. So that was kind of their Raz, you know. And we had a couple that used to, I don't advocate this, I'm just trying to help you get across the line. We had a couple here, name I won't mention, and they used to argue a lot. And finally, all the households, I was a household at the time, we all pitched in and we bought them 6 lessons, with 6 sessions with a marriage counselor. It was a good marriage counselor. And so we all pitched in and said, listen, you know, because we'd all tried to help individually and it wasn't working. So we pooled our money and off they went. And they had 6 sessions. And after about the 3rd one, the husband said to me, we're getting along, it's you know, hey, it was really good, thank you. And she just came up with a new thing. We need to, you know, get outside of our, you know, we're in kind of a rut in patterns. We always see ourselves just in context of, you know, and we need to do something outside. So she told us to take up a hobby, do some kind of hobby, something together, you know. So he said, we've got something. I said, oh really, what's the hobby? They took up martial arts. Everybody said, no, and it's a true story. They had a huge fight. The wife, and I'm sure she was justified, kicked the guy, broke 2 ribs.
Oh my God.
So, you know, it depends on the bias, it depends on the application. I just want to get you across the line.
Marital, martial?
Yeah, you just switch the eye.
Marital, martial.
By contrast, just let me take 30 seconds, 15 seconds. So I lived together with my brahmachari friend Kangeya for 10 years, from 94 to 2004. And we never had an argument.
Wow.
Not one disagreement.
Wow.
We just came to Mangalarti, we would play on Sunday night, he would be... Go ahead.
I know that too. There was also another couple, they weren't living in the temple, but they used to come and they, you know. And he was Indian, she was from Mexico. She only spoke Spanish. He didn't speak a word of Spanish, he only spoke English. They got along great. No problem. Sign language, a few words, got along great. And they got along so well, they decided to get married. As long as they were getting married, they thought, well, you better learn Spanish, I better learn English. She learned English, he learned Spanish, they could communicate well, they fought all the time and they broke up. They got along great when they couldn't talk. So there's all kinds of mixes, you know.
Yeah. You have something? I mean,
Well, if there's time.
yeah, there's something.
Yeah, we have 1 minute.
Okay. Well, I've been married since 1979, but not to the same woman. I had 18 years experience with a Patel, Gujarati Patel. And the interesting thing is that most Indian women, from my experience, and after talking to so many Gujarati friends, is that they can be very humble before marriage, but then generally after marriage, they become a little bit, more dominant. Sometimes the boss, or most of the time. And the same similarly with Russian or American women. Generally, it's better to take the role, if you want a happy marriage as a man, to take not to be the boss, even though that's Vedically the correct method. This is from my personal experience. If you want cooperative, successful marriage, then you have to know who is the boss.
Yeah.
That's my experience. Hare Krishna.
My father's advice, and he was married 45 years. They were married 65 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's a long story. It's a nice story, actually. Quite sweet. But he told me advice I didn't follow. He told of a number of his good advice I didn't follow. He said, look, you've got your business world, you've got your outside career. I mean, this is in the 50s, and then later on 60s. He said, you got your world that you can control and be in charge. He said, in the house, just agree with her. Just, she wants to paint the curtains, she wants to raise the kids this way, just agree, just say yes. He said, let her run the house, you make the money, and it's a little typecast like that. But he was actually good advice. I'm actually for once agreeing with Abhinandan. It can happen.
On that positive note, okay.
Okay, she
Yeah, please.
like
Go
the
ahead.
lady wants to.
Should I leave the room?
Short comment about my experience, and I can say that I am, as a woman, Russian woman, very dominant as well. But I think it's very important to meet the person, the partner, who is actually more dominant. So my husband, he teaches me how to be subordinate and submissive, and just because he is a very strong leader in our family, I want to do this for him. It's not because I want to fight with him, it's because I want to please him and to be a good wife. So I want to be subordinate and submissive because I see how good leader he is at home, right, as a man. So I think it's very important, and for a man and for a woman to be in the proper positions.
Well, my daughter, the joke, and I mean, we're having an Oprah moment here. The joke in my family was that between my daughter and me, we sucked all the passion out of the gene pool. And my son Neil, I don't know if you know, but he's such a nice, accommodating. He's just like the easiest, isn't it? He's such an easy person to get along with, and So my daughter, and sometimes they say that the daughter will take after the father, and the son will take after the mother. So she's quite a hard charger. I didn't know this, but she has something like 600 people in her downline that are under her, she's the youngest vice president at Oracle, so many things. But she told me that she's very grateful for her husband. She said, because sometimes she gets so wound up, and so, he said, when it really crunch comes, and I'm flipped or fried or angry, he's the one who steps in and says, hey, come on, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to. And she's extremely grateful for that.
Yeah.
So, it's a subtle combination of time. It's like a gas and a clutch, to drive a manual. You got to have a mix. It's all clutch or all gas. You're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you got to slam on the brakes.
Sometimes you got to slam on the brakes.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Follow?
Yes.